Hello and welcome to 20 Good Summers, or welcome back to 20 Good Summers. I am Paulina Parskova, and this is my love and... You always do that.
You should just say, "This is my love," and then I'll say Jeff Green stuff.
Well, I did.
Okay.
I
You
said
"This is
my love
and-"
and... Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. And he also happens to be Jeff Greenstein.
Okay, thank you. We're back. Can this be our fourth episode?
This is our fourth episode, and it's also part 2 of dating.
Yeah, can
dating
you talk
for
about why
older
we spilled
people.
into a part 2?
We had to spill into a part 2 because we realized there was so much to say in part 1. And frankly, people, it might even lead to part 3. I mean, it's not inconceivable because we have gotten a lot of emails from y'all.
Yes.
I love to say y'all.
Yeah, you know why that happened? Because you're in love with a Southerner. That's what's happening.
Because I'm going to marry a Southern man.
That's right. And so we are required to learn how to deploy y'all in everyday conversation.
Mr. Greenstein. What a pleasure.
Don't do accents.
No, but I'm maybe not Southern.
Oh, my God.
I'm really good at everything else,
Yeah.
not Southern.
Okay, so here's
Anyway.
the thing. We were overwhelmed by the response to the episode. Everyone really picked up on this theme. I think, it's funny. We pretty much covered in the first episode the whole question of, we talked about our own experience on dating apps and almost like the preparatory part. Like, how do you represent yourself in a dating profile? And we kind of got up to the precipice of actually meeting another human being. So
Correct. So what we covered was how poorly Jeff represented himself on the dating profile. You're welcome.
and how well
And how well I represented myself. Of course, I do have, I have a career of 40 years in...
No, I would argue it's not the same thing because
Well, but not representing myself authentically, but representing myself well.
yes, well, what I think the brilliance of your dating profile, as I mentioned, was that it was not an idealized version of you. It was the actual astringent version of you.
Yes, I wanted the prospective partners to know who they were dealing with. Anyway, so that was sort of leading up to, okay, so now I got a profile down and I'm going to put it down on a dating app. What dating app? So many people have written in and said, well, you guys are lucky because you got to be on Raya.
Okay, can you address
being
that?
the fancy dating app for celebrities, and so everybody in there is vetted. Well, yeah, just because you're famous doesn't mean that you don't have some bad habits.
Well, as we know, famous people are legendarily great at establishing long-lasting, loving, and enduring relationships. We all look to them.
That's right, because famous people are not at all a little rapey because they can get away with it.
Can I also point out, I am neither famous nor fabulous. I snuck into this app through the side door. It was the only app I was on. I think you need to talk just for a beat about the non-Raya aspect. You were on many apps. How many?
Yes,
Which ones?
I was on 5 other dating apps, and I mentioned it in the last episode. But for all of you who forgot, I was on Hinge, I was on Bumble, I was on The League, I was on Tinder, and I was on Raya, and then I feel like there was one more.
Okay.
I
don't know. There was
Hinge.
okay, but you covered the waterfront, as it were.
I covered everything. I figured I was, I would be in the best position to choose if I had the most to choose from.
Okay.
And being an older woman, yes, there is a definite paucity of men, of equal men that are not going to only exclusively date women that are much younger.
Do these different apps have different cultures? In other words,
Right.
Okay, I'd like you to talk about this, but I would not know.
You were only on Raya. Lucky you.
Yeah, I know. I've been told since then Raya is not necessarily the most.
You know what? Raya is a wonderful place to go if you're an older man and who was actually not afraid of older women. You'll get a lot of real hot ladies on Raya because they are basically just sitting there, being completely unchosen.
Right.
On Raya, I got altogether I was on Raya for 5 years, guys, and I got an altogether 5 dates out of Raya, okay?
All
So,
kind of marriage. I mean, come on.
hey, you got lucky.
Okay,
Plus
but
you're not married yet.
that's true. All right. Still
On I got lots of dates out of Hinge, plenty. Actually, I think my most successful app was Hinge as far as the amount of dates and also really nice people on Hinge. Bumble, I there was only a few. The League, one terrible mistake. Tinder,
mm,
a little odd. But yeah, for me, Hinge was actually the one of the apps that I would recommend. Bumble and Hinge are the two that I would recommend to my fellow sisters.
which is the one where the girls make the move?
It's Bumble.
Okay, can you again? I know nothing, guys. I'm the naif, like trying to. Okay.
Well,
Oh, well, how does it?
Bumble gives you the control of like letting you see who is saying hello and who likes you, and you get to respond on your own terms, which is actually kind of true for everybody. But I think maybe on Mumble, you can hide for a while. So if you're not sure of like how you're feeling about this or what's out there, and do you want to say hello to somebody, you can hide on Bumble,
What does hide mean?
which just means that your profile is not public and
Okay.
that that you can just kind of stay back for a little bit. And for all of you who are really reluctant to try a dating app, this is a good way to go. I mean, you can stay hidden and just see what's out on the market for a
So
bit. That's fine.
you're a lurker.
Yeah, kind of like a troll.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're getting to the point of talking about when you connect with someone. Now, the way it worked on Raya was if you like someone, you give them a little heart. I think you're limited to a certain number of
I never had enough choices, so
Okay, well, I flung them out there because I had so few. I figured I'd better talk about a vulnerable
called
business.
spreading the seed.
Yes, well, not listen. I didn't get liked back all that much, but is that how it works on other apps? Is that you
Now,
fling a
they all have slightly different variations of the same thing. Yeah, sometimes I think on Hinge you were swiping left or right. I think the same thing is for Tinder. Like, the variations are slightly different, but what all of them have in common is that you create a profile and you can put it up and you can stay hidden for a while and just look through other people. Look through other people. And if somebody grabs your fancy, perhaps you want to say hello, and then they're going to have to, and then they can check you out without it being public all across the app. I think that's the thing that is true for Bumble. Anyway, it's funny. It's been 3 years since I was on the apps, and I have kind of forgotten how they all
great.
work.
Isn't it beautiful that it's receding from memory? Here's the other question I wanted to ask you, just apropos of what I just said. I kind of, again, because I was new at this, didn't quite understand the politics of it all, and I did want to get out and meet people. I would err on the side of saying yes. How about you?
Well, I would also err on the side of saying yes. But this is what I'm hearing a lot from the sisters, which
Yeah.
is um I don't I'm not entirely feeling safe, and I don't really know how to feel safe on a date. And so I think a lot of women are sort of staying back because there are issues of safety.
Okay, this is a male-female dynamic. Okay, and
Unfortunately, yes.
yeah, I've never been in that position of feeling unsafe.
Mm,
Even, I mean, you're even talking about feeling not entirely safe inside the sphere of an app
exactly.
before you even leave your home.
Right.
What would you advise? We're talking to women. Again, we bring our heterosexual mindset to this, guys. We're filtered through that. We can't help it. That's our instrument. Okay. What would you say as a straightish woman? All right.
For the straight,
I know, right? Oh,
say fluid.
okay. But what would you say to women who worry about that feeling of vulnerability, fear, anxiety of like putting themselves out there, even within the relative kind of corral of an app?
Unfortunately, there's really only one way forward, and that is forward. You have to gather your courage and you have to put yourself out there. There's really you can't I if you don't gamble, you're not gonna win. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just the way that's life. I mean, that's life in all positions. It's with career, it's with love, it's in every aspect of life. We are not we're not objects, we're not fruit that's hanging off of branches waiting to be sampled. And and if you are, if that's the way you feel about yourself, well then I guess you will be sampled by whoever comes and grabs you and without you having a choice, which I wouldn't recommend.
Okay, so it occurs to me, there's kind of three phases to this process. There is the connecting on the app and then texting on the app, because I assume that, like Raya, these other apps have within the app texting universe
Yes, and
where,
even sometimes video chatting, so you don't have to exchange phone numbers until you can go through the app until you're comfortable giving out your phone number.
right. And if you feel uncomfortable or if the interaction is unpleasant, you can just cut them off.
That's right.
Okay, that's phase one. Phase two is giving them your phone number.
Mhm.
Okay. How many, as you said, it was a volume business for you. How many times did you, percentage wise, did you end up giving your phone number? In other words, I'm open to messaging IRL, as the kids say.
Right. Um, I would say maybe about 40% where I would give my phone number
Hmm.
and about 60% where I would go on a date first. Um,
Wait, before giving you.
for sure. Well, also you have to, and this is where my story might be a little bit
Yes.
different, but it's actually in line with other women who are or not that are a little bit more afraid of their safety or privacy. I had to be careful with my privacy because I
Public figure.
I am sort of a public figure, and so I didn't want just any rando on the internet have my phone number.
Right.
So
So sometimes you would go so far as to text on the app and make a plan to have
many
coffee or
times.
something without ever giving up your
Absolutely.
phone number. Okay.
Absolutely. So I would do I we would plan the date through the app so they did not have my phone number. And we would be texting through the app, we would be chatting through the app, and then I would go on the first date. And then if they warranted a second date, then they could probably have my number.
Okay, let me mention kind of a corollary, which is a kind of mid step that I skipped, which is following each other on social media. Did you ever connect with a guy you liked? Was there a step where it's like, oh, I'm going to follow him and see what's up with him? Or did you just spy on their social media?
I spied on them. This is what Google is for.
Oh, so you would do, okay, let's talk about this. Again, these are all these baby steps, guys. This is fascinating.
Darling, I sometimes like your mathematical brain is so great because like you're actually um approaching this as
As a person on the spectrum? Yeah,
yes,
possibly,
thank
yes.
God for that.
Thank God for the spectrum. Okay, so okay, you've connected with someone and the texting within the app has been fun. Fun
Right.
enough to, so is it kinda like we should text again? Or is it at this point that you kinda go, "I'm gonna do my due diligence and do a little creative Googling or creative Instagram stalking of this guy."
Okay,
What's the sequence?
for me, it would be, and again, it's because I'm a public figure and it
Go for it.
complicates things.
Yeah.
But if you were a fun texter on the app and you had a sense of humor and you seemed bright, I would think, okay, so giving you a coffee date or
Yes.
a dinner date when I was bored, sure, why not? Um,
Okay.
and that would proceed to, and then wait, well,
What? No, I'm talking about creative
oh, that's
Googling
right, of course.
and
No,
social media stalking.
as soon as I have decided that I'm going to set up a date with you, or maybe sometimes before, I would Google stalk you. Yeah,
Okay.
of course.
Google stalk. So researching to see if
Mhm.
they have
I would
some
put
sort of
your
public profile out
That's right. I
there.
would put
And
your name in there and see what came up. And in many of the cases, it would just be LinkedIn profiles. Like I had to,
say,
I had to join LinkedIn.
oh man, oh man,
I
I
was
want to
on
hear about
LinkedIn too, but that was not a dating.
how many of y'all had to join LinkedIn to find out about potential partners. I never did that. I was so overwhelmed with LinkedIn emails. I did this secret thing you can do to block them from ever contacting you again.
Mm,
So I did not learn about the job history of any of the women that I went out with. Okay, but you would spy on their social media.
correct.
Okay. Okay, we've talked in the
Oh,
last
no,
episode, but
but before we go
yeah,
there,
go ahead.
how about you? So you're on just one app and also kind of the most skewed app,
Yes.
the one that's the least realistic out of all the apps. But I'm curious as to how does a man, when you see you're giving hellos to all these attractive women, right? And
Yes.
then an attractive woman gives you a hello back. What's your next step?
Uh,
Oh yes, that's right. Undress and wait for her to make her
oh
way.
man. Oh my God. Wow. She has me dead to rights. Okay,
That's so nice.
so bad. What did I do? I mean, remember, I was not on as many apps as you, exactly one, and not for as long. Okay. But that said, I would definitely do a little creative Googling and social media
So you would.
stalking. I would because I'm curious, like, who are they and what are they up to? And as I said, on Raya, you're given very, very little information about this person,
That's right.
right? In addition to their self description and 8 or 10 photos and the song they pick, there's a link to their Instagram.
Mhm.
As if, by the way, Instagram is a true reflection of your multidimensional, variegated self. That's insane. But it's all I had to go on in a lot of cases. So I would scroll through. Did I follow them? I hate to tell you, I probably did.
That sounds very.
I know it sounds very much like me. It's not cool, probably, right? I mean, I mean, if you're a civilian, you're not a civilian, okay? But if you're a civilian and you saw that, like, 5 minutes after connecting on a dating app, dude is following you on Instagram, that's probably a little overeager.
Well, we do have friends that this happened to, and that are not public figures,
Correct.
and that do have Instagram accounts, and they will go, okay, so I just said hello to him on Hinge, and now he's following me. I'm feeling a little.
But would you? That's what I'm saying. It's so many shades and nuances in this, which fascinate
Well,
me.
you don't have to follow people on Instagram. You can just peek. We know this.
What if it's one of those? It's a private profile.
Yeah, exactly.
What
Well,
if it's
then
that?
you should not be knocking on that door until you've had permission.
That's so tricky because I want to know more about this person.
Well, you Google them.
Okay, you Google them.
Yeah.
Okay, but I did encounter a couple of, like, veiled in shadows.
And then what did you do then?
Well, I would go out with them anyway.
Oh,
I
of
mean,
course.
of course I would. I wasn't that discriminating.
Or was it kind of attractive to you that this was a woman of mystery?
No,
No?
I don't. I mean, sorry guys. I don't. I know the Dance of the Seven Veils and the striptease and all that stuff. It's supposed to be about the mystery. Not into it. Not
Clearly,
into it.
because you wouldn't have not ended up with me if you were into it, because I'm about
Really?
the least mysterious person there is.
No, you're pretty forthright,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
You're pretty forthright, and you do put yourself out there and dare people to, either accept or reject it, which
Yeah.
is one of the things I love about you. But that's not everybody. And I think also, listen, is sometimes cultivating an air of mystery, secretly actually being intensely insecure and not wanting to let people in. Reaction.
Hmm. Is it my reaction you seek?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case,
There's only two in the room. Yes.
um, I think to me, meeting a guy who cultivates an air of mystery, no thanks, pass
Wow.
right away. No,
Not.
at my age, I don't have the time for fucking mystery.
Thank you. We are right on theme with this. Right on theme, because I can't wait to talk about this part. This is the thing that I was really eager to get to in the last episode, and I realized at a certain point I was going to have to kick it down the line. I find it fascinating. Okay. One of the things, now remember, I had not been much of a dater in my teens. Strategic cozying, that was my plan. When I began going out on these dates, now this, by the way, I got fixed up. We talked in the last episode about how I got fixed up and you
Yep.
didn't. Okay. When I got fixed up, or when I would meet a woman on what is effectively a blind date, a riot date, I was stunned by the speed with which they would throw cards on the table. Like, how are you fixed financially? Do you want more kids? Like, they would start flinging, like, high level, advanced questions out at me very fast, like before the drinks arrived.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that, darling?
Well, I think it's women that have done their work. I think it's women that know they have done their work, as in they know what they want. And why would I spend the time cozying up to you if there's nothing in store for me here?
The-
Like, I don't have the time to do that, and I don't intend to waste my time doing that. And I think this is a lot of what women that I hear from are really concerned about apps is that you're wasting your time on all these dates. You're going on date after date, and you're just wasting your time.
Okay, I'd like to inquire further into this because I love it. And this does follow on what we said in the last episode about how you represent yourself
Right.
on the dating app. It should be authentically you. And when you describe, you said, when you describe in your little 3-line description of what you're looking for, be straight up about what you want. So, as I said, I was taken aback by this. I found it slightly exhilarating because, people coming right at me, I love. I love that. It's much easier to read for someone who doesn't always pick up on the cues that he should be picking up on. Okay.
And frankly, if you are on a date with a 50, 60, 70, 80-year-old man who is not entirely sure what he wants or how to answer your questions, well, he hasn't done the work and he's probably looking for a 30-year-old. So just let him go. He can run off through the meadows looking for the young nubile ones. You need a
Okay,
man.
let's talk about again, male female dichotomy here because I found that it was the rule, not the exception, that women that I would connect with would lay it out there very, very quickly. And I needed to be prepared with my answers, by the way, which I had thought about. I mean, this came out in our initial conversations like, what do you want? Are you ever looking to get married again? Just so you know, I'm not moving to Los Angeles. These were things that came up in our first conversation. You were very, like, steadfast and out front about what you wanted.
Sure, you were like date like 65, so I wasn't going to waste my time.
Exactly. And this is, to me, a very 20 Good Summers kind of theme. We have no time to waste. You can't spin your wheels for months hoping that this person is going to transmogrify into the vessel of your dreams. Okay. You ask the question right away. And if they don't answer the question to your satisfaction, why would you waste more time on that?
Now, for me, the men that pose equal kind of questions when you're on a first date is zero.
This is what I wanted to ask. I love that you set me up. Guys never came at you with
Nope.
questions like that?
Nope. Guys never asked me what went wrong in my relationship. Guys never asked if I wanted to get married again. Like literally none. Do you want to live here? Do you want to live? Nothing. None of
Why?
that seemed
Why is
interested.
that? Why? Are
Um.
men inferior?
Well, of course we know that.
Okay, what else?
But besides that,
Besides that,
um, it seemed like guys wanted more of a um sexy time. Like, no, but
I'd
no,
like to
like
have sex with you first and answer those questions later.
exactly. I'd like to sort of, try the car out first before I commit
Wow.
to being interested in like the financing of the vehicle.
Seriously. So let me ask you, do you think they had thought about these things, or do you think they just had not even thought about it and that they wouldn't answer those questions until forced to?
I think they would not answer those questions until forced to. And I think
Great.
many of them actually just don't know. Like they act, you may have woman after woman ask you, but you really think, well, do I want to have more children? Say talking to a guy who's like 52. Well, maybe if it's the right woman. Well, that's not an answer
No, it's not.
to a woman. There was a lot of that. Well, with the right woman, I'd get married again if it was the right. I guess I'm auditioning to be the right woman, and in order to be the right woman, I first have to seduce you.
Wow. This is, oh my God, what you women have to put up with.
I know
So,
it sucks.
would you urge? Here's one of the things that we found out. And I am hoping that we no longer know where we are in our hour, but we are hoping we'll have time to get to many of the voluminous emails that you favored us with. One of the things that was delightful is we got as many emails from men as women. Isn't that
Yeah.
amazing?
Well, not as many, but we got Charles one from
about
guys, which
I-
is really nice.
It was remarkable. What would you say? There's two possible answers here. One is it just incumbent upon women to ask these questions, or would you urge the men to sharpen their minds and be prepared to ask or answer those questions themselves? Which is it? Like, is it a
So
woman's
that's
job? Is it a woman's job out there on the dating market to be the question asker? Or should guys be equally right?
and then guys complain about it. "Oh my god, I felt like I was at a job interview." Well, guess what, buddy? You are.
Oh, is it a job interview?
For me, it was. I have to admit it. For me, it was a job interview. I was taking it. See, dating is easier, I think, when you're older if you do take it as a job interview. So, to me, a marked difference between dating at, well, I guess before I met my husband.
Teenage.
So it's 18,
Yeah.
19 to now, was besides being incredibly viable back then and not so much now, is that I had very low expectations of the guys. Like I could
Wait, when you were a teen.
when I was a teen,
Okay.
exactly. I could meet a guy and I would like his haircut and I go, well, that's good enough to make out with him. And one thing would lead to another, and then he'd be my boyfriend. Then I'd go, wait, I really only liked his haircut. That happened to me once.
One. Thank God, only once.
Oh,
Amazing.
I learned from
Okay.
then.
Yes.
Um, and now, like, I don't have, nor I do not have that sort of outlook on the world as in, you know, I have the time to sort of go through and be disappointed, or perhaps this could be the great love of my life if I only fix this and fix this and fix this. Like, I know so much better now.
Right.
First of all, we're not fixable. If somebody does not want to change, they're not going to change. So, yes, I want to know upfront who they are to save us both some time. And I think, actually, I also think that the guys that tend to date younger is because they don't want to have those questions.
Yes. Okay.
They don't want to be questioned.
Okay. This is a thicket, and I want to like kind of
Mm,
move through it.
do you have a machete?
Yeah. I do. I have a machete, which is my
Yo.
rapier sharp mind. Okay. Here we go. So this, I would imagine. Let's talk about this, as I always like to do, from the female point of view. I would say a lot of women who are already intimidated by the prospect of putting themselves out there, okay, putting themselves out there on a dating app, being vulnerable, all that stuff, that's already super scary. But you've just made it, I think, a little
Oh,
scarier.
dear.
No, 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 that's not a bad thing. I think it's just perhaps the paradigm of the job interview is a better way to look at
Well,
this
this is what I was
than a referendum on you.
correct. And
That's what, okay.
thank you, because I mean, you've just kind of condensed what I'm saying at length here, which is if you look at dating as job interviewing, and in fact, you are interviewing
Yes.
prospective partner.
To do a specific job.
Exactly, which is to be your partner.
Yes.
So there are certain things that you need to know about them. And when you and it's not so much about being rejected, because it's like, well, this dude doesn't want the job. That's fine, but you don't want somebody who's not going to want the job. You are only interested in serious applicants. And
It,
the only way that you're going to determine how serious they are about applying for the job is by meeting them. Meeting them for a coffee, meeting them for a tea, for a drink, for dinner, whatever it is that you want. But looking at it as a, sort of, and again, dating itself being a numbers game. Somebody on the email mentioned that it was called the burnt haystack, burning the
yeah.
burnt
I've never
haystack
heard that.
dating, which I guess is like take each straw, burn it. At some
Wow.
point, you're gonna find something of value,
Yeah.
which is true for me. It was in the numbers, and so I had to interview a lot of applicants, and not all of them were serious. I mean, for me, I know, and again, so many people have said, well, I mean, obviously you had it so much easier in the dating world because of who you are. Well, in some ways, yes, there are more interest, initial interest, and then it gets a lot harder because then I have to I have to find out who's actually serious and who just wants to
Say they
sleep
went
with
with you.
me, yeah,
Yeah.
in order to have
Okay.
etc., etc.
But go ahead.
No, I think
Okay, can I zigzag back to this? Because I
yes.
think this is so, um, such a different lens through which to view the process of dating at this age. And again, we're speaking to the women, okay? But Oh my God, the anxiety, the insecurity, the fear, and so forth. You're putting yourself out there to be evaluated. If that is how you can, if that is what you think a date is, you will never leave your home.
Yeah.
But if you think of it as, I am looking for someone to do a job around my house. I'm looking for a plumber. I'm looking for a roofer. I'm looking for someone with as Liam Neeson says, a very specific set of skills.
Yeah.
Well, then you go out there and you look for someone with those skills. And by the way, attraction is one part of that.
And it actually, in some ways, should be the least important one in the beginning. Uh,
Please elaborate.
well, and this is, can I get to the butterflies?
Go for it. Yeah, okay. So, yes, attraction. Okay, that initial feeling when you sit down at the table with somebody, go for it.
Well, or you see their picture on a dating app and you think, oh, he's attractive. Oh, she's hot. You text with them, they it sparks little butterflies, and then you're all excited about the date. And you get to the table, you sit down, and you think, well, wow, they're just as cute as I thought they would be. Or perhaps by sitting down, the little butterflies start then. Well, I am here to loudly proclaim that those butterflies might be cockroaches. And this might be exactly the opposite of what you actually want to feel.
Yes. Okay. I would like to open this up a little further and then throw
Mm.
it back to you.
Yes.
This is something we spoke about extensively when we were getting to know each other. We were talking about how the traditional paradigm of falling in love, oh my God, even that verb,
Falling.
it implies a loss of control, abandon, losing yourself. I'm helpless. I'm spun around in a tornado. Oh my God. Um,
That's right.
the classic romantic novel or romantic movie is our love was forged in a crucible of
Okay.
pain. He was not available. She was married to someone else. We had to overcome impossible odds. These are recipes for drama,
Correct.
not happiness. And we talked so much about this because the idea that you feel on edge all the time when she's around, that's terrible for you. You
For
don't
y
want to feel on edge all the time.
for you to be breathless and feel those the sort of like the fizzy butterflies taking flight inside your body. This is actually anxiety. This is not attraction. This is anxiety. What is the anxiety from? Well, it's not because you have met somebody that is so perfect for you that you're just so excited to get to know them. No, it goes like this. Uh, you have learned what love is from your original caretakers. Generally, usually your parents. Sometimes it's a grandparents or a nanny or whoever else got in there. Well, this is however they treated their love to you, however you learn to love them, is what you think love is. And if you had less than an ideal family situation, chances are that when you feel those butterflies, it's because it's every bad quality of your parents that is cropping up. It's familiarity. It's your childhood trauma calling you back. It's poison. So, for me to sort of realize this, to understand that a man with a armful of red doesn't mean roses, it might be red flags, took me a while. And it wasn't, I think, actually until I met you when I had sorted out like what was what and what I should be leery of and what was okay.
Can I ask you to elaborate further on one specific
Sure.
part of this? Okay. I think a lot of people, when you say to them, you know, what I have found in this relationship is the ability to be fully myself. I'm not on edge all the time. I'm relaxed. I feel at ease. I
I
feel
feel
comfortable.
safe.
I feel safe. I feel a sense of home. That does not sound sexy to a lot of people. That sounds incredibly boring. It sounds anodyne. It doesn't sound hot. It doesn't sound full of passion.
You know what it sounds like?
Respond.
It sounds like, you're settling.
What
Set
difference?
I'm
Yeah.
settling. Well, because the high passion, the butterflies, the pain, the drama, that's the English patient. That's Wuthering Heights. That's every love movie that you sob over that invariably ends in tragedy, in case you haven't noticed. There are very few dramas that end well. Um, it's movies, it's tension, it's drama to keep you interested. That is not what actual love is at all.
You are saying that not only do we have to disabuse ourselves of a concept of romance that we got from Hollywood movies and overheated English novels, but we also have to discard paradigms that we've adopted from our parents or our caretakers and our previous relationships. How in the living world do you do that?
Okay, so here's a very easy way of starting. This is a little start, right? This is a little invention, this is a little test that I have made up, and I have given this test to pretty much everybody I
We
know at
did it
this
with each
point.
other
We
on our
did it with each other,
We've infected a lot of friends with this test. Go ahead.
it really works. So it goes like this. Grab a piece of paper and write down your primary caretakers. So usually it's mom, dad. Sometimes it's mom, dad, aunt,
Older sister,
or
nanny.
both grandparents. A lot of people have, for I had grandparents. Anybody who was really significant in taking care of you when you were a child. So, like form building when you were a child. And then write every wonderful, positive thing about them that you remember. And again, not from your point of view now, not when you look back and you think, oh, she tried really hard or he meant really well. No, that's not what we're talking about. Look at them, remember back when how you felt about them as a child. And sometimes the only good thing you have to say about somebody is they were elegant. They smelled good. Whatever it is. But put down everything good as you remember it as a child. And then take a deep breath and put down everything negative that you remember about them. And then take at least 3 more deep breaths before you read it back and circle each characteristic that is present in your former commitment, in your former marriage, partnership, relationship, the one that you're still on, and see how many negatives you manage to vacuum up or how many positives you manage to vacuum up. In our case, in Jeff and I case, so I would say I've been in love twice before in my life before I met you. And when I went over this list, I realized that I had nailed every single negative quality of my parents and my grandmother, and maybe one or two of the good ones. But I totally went through the entire book of negative qualities. And you
Same. Same. Unerring, as if I had set out with a guidebook
Mhm.
saying, here are all the things you need to find. I got all of the negative qualities and a sprinkling of the positive. And we had this, and it's funny, I don't know how you invented this game, I guess, or something. We were really hoping that the relationship we were forging would feature a surfeit of positive qualities and maybe only a minor sprinkling of the negative. And so far, it seems to be playing out that way.
That's right.
You can't, well, actually, it turns out we have a friends who have like all the best. Well, also they had the best parents on earth, right? But they were virtually no negatives to choose
There
from.
was actually one person that I did this test on who had no negative quality.
And I really believe this person was being honest,
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
honest
He
about who
wasn't
their
lying, and
parents
he
were.
wasn't in denial. The interesting thing about this was that it took him a while to form a relationship, a good relationship. He
Yeah,
didn't meet
that's
this
right.
partner until a little later on in life. because his parents were so perfect. It was hard to find somebody
Yeah, who
that's at
embodied.
his level of
Yeah.
perfection.
Yeah.
So it can fuck you even in that way.
Yeah.
So your
But
parents are too good.
exactly. But this is a very useful exercise in examining in your previous relationships what were you inexorably drawn to without even knowing it. Without even knowing, like it was the tractor beam in Star Wars, like it got hold of your ship and it would not let it go. I mean, I like to think, we like to think, we're relatively self aware people. But in spite of that, it was like, oh my God, it was like ambrosia when we
Yep.
were presented with like a plate of the nastiest stuff imaginable. And so recognizing that, the thing you said so pithily, that sometimes what is it? The butterflies are cockroaches. That's what it is.
That's right.
You know, it's worth noting. I don't want to get out of this discussion without mentioning this. Everyone loves the movie The Graduate. Okay, that final shot of The Graduate, when they're in the back of the bus and all of the romantic comedy is over and they're breathless and they're excited. And then the smiles fade and they have to have a life together. None of the qualities that Benjamin has exhibited make him a good bet. They don't. He's a terrible bet. She's not a great bet either, but we know much more about him than her.
Yeah.
So when those smiles fade, it's the realization of like, now what? What are we going to forge together? And we don't want to be in that now what zone. We really, really don't. It goes back to this. We don't have the time.
Yeah.
We don't have the time to screw around in a zone of like, who are you? What do I want? What do you want? And so this thought experiment is useful. And also, just to go back to what we were saying before, it's useful in building a portrait of what you think you're looking for. Those qualities that we talked about in
That's
the
right.
first episode.
Well, once you figure out what you don't want, look for exactly for episode 1 for all of you who
Yes.
haven't heard it, which is find the qualities that are really that you cannot do without. And so with that, we are moving on to so now you're actively dating, right? So you have stuck by with us and you have now decided to get on those dating apps, make a profile, have a friend approve it, or two of the opposite sex or the sex you're trying to attract. Um, and you know that you can text through the app, so you're not a danger. They don't need your home phone number. They don't need your address. You can stay safe. Now you and you're going for a job interview. Remember, you're not interviewing for a job interview. They are. Technically, both of you are, but it's easier to look at it as it's my choice because us women, it turns out, right? We tend to choose you. Actually, we allow, well, we,
Biologically speaking, you mean?
yes.
Yes. It tends to be the woman who does the choosing.
Right. The man may make the big move and go, hey, you over there, but the woman sort of has to allow it to happen.
Correct. Yes.
I mean, in my case, that's also a waste of time. I would just like to go straight to the guy and go, hey, I want you. And I've always been like that because I grew up in Sweden and that's what
Yes.
we were taught to do. And it's
Okay,
toxic.
so are we
But
talking about the night of? Are we talking about the night of?
let's talk about the night of. So, what do you do when you are on a first date?
Oh my God. I am the. Ugh. What do I do? Well, you had a first date with me, but see, our first date was strange because it was smeared across a whole month of getting to know each other.
Yeah, so it doesn't really count because our first date was we were like we said the Brownings, we courted each
Well, let's
other.
talk about it anyway, because it at least contains some of the characteristics that might be involved in a first date, even if ours aired on the side of
Well,
conversation before chemistry.
yes, and the first when you asked if we could get on our
FaceTime.
chat, yeah,
Yeah.
FaceTime, um, and talk with a cup of tea. So it was sort of like the first date was really then because we saw each other and on the screen and we had a little tea and we talked for like 2 hours.
Okay. And yeah, we did.
Yeah.
First conversation was a good long one. And yeah, just to reprise, I don't think we're repeating ourselves. You had hearted my profile solely because I picked a good song.
Yep.
We had a little back and forth on the app, texting on the app, and I hit so many pleasure centers as it turned out. Roman history. You told me that you wanted that when I asked you a question no one had asked you. What did you think you wanted to be when you grew up, when you were a little girl? What did you want to be? And what did you say?
A postal worker or a housekeeper. But,
Phenomenal.
this and I have to say, this you were alone in that you had my number within, like, 4 sentences. I was like,
Y-
"Here is my home number."
And
You
it's
mentioned all of those things, cared about what I wanted to do when I was a little girl. I Claudius, Roman history, great music, and I was like, "Here's my number."
Yeah. Now, that is not because I'm slick or a great operator. It is because we discovered we had a lot in common.
Yeah, because we were meant to be together.
Exactly. But then I was stuck here on a TV job. You're in New York. And I said, yeah, would you like to brew up a pot of tea? Okay,
We've
wait.
already
I
we've
skipped a
already
step.
we've
Skipped a step.
yeah, but we've already been through this one.
Okay, but wait, we skipped a step because you did give me your number and we texted occasionally. And I was very reserved about texting. Okay.
Right.
Because I was like, she's fabulous. She's probably really busy. I'm not sure she wants to hear from the weird nerdy guy on the West Coast. But then you finally said to me, are you not a texter? And I was like, oh, no, I'm totally a texter. And you're like, well, then text me.
But see, again, this is me saying, "Hey, you know what I want? I want more text."
Correct.
So this is asserting myself and asking for what I want, which I had never done until then. I was always kind of doing the passive aggressive thing when it came to the wooing stage or the courting stage in which I felt like, well, if the guy doesn't text me, it means he doesn't
Like,
really want me.
exactly.
And so I'm not going to humiliate myself by being like, hey, what's up? Where are you? Why haven't you texted me? And of course, you do hear this also a lot from guys is like, well, I mean, she was okay, but she kept texting me all the time,
Oh,
like
I got it.
making me feel beholden and like suddenly we were in a relationship and I had only taken her out for a coffee. It's like, cool your heels a bit.
Yeah, I tripped over myself a couple of times during the texting phase,
Do tell.
attempting to make plans. Well, okay. There was one woman I connected with, and I said, and we had a very nice like texting conversation, and I said, "Hey, would you like to meet for a smoothie on Thursday afternoon?" She said, "Sounds great. Let's confirm on the day." It's like terrific. Thursday morning at a respectful hour, 10:30, for a 4 o'clock plan, I text her and say, hey, are we still on for 4 o'clock today? I just want to make sure. And we didn't really nail down a place. I think we talked about something. I don't hear anything. 2 hours later, I'm like, geez, I don't want to like stand her up. Like we sort of have a plan. So 2 hours later, like around 1, I text her and say, I'm just checking in. I'm sorry. I don't want to be weird, but are we getting together today? And then at 3 o'clock, I text and say, seems like you're busy. We'll just kick this to another day. And she comes back at me with a storm of texts. What are you doing? Why are you relentlessly texting me? Like, I just want you to know you are really turning me off. This is so wrong and so inappropriate. And just know, I know you're new on this app and stuff, but that is not cool. And I went, I'm sorry. I'm new here. You're absolutely right. I just thought we had a plan and I didn't want to be inappropriate by not showing up. But listen, it was fun texting with you. Go with God. Then a critical mistake on my part. She texts back and says, I'm sorry. Gosh, I think I went off on you. I really apologize. Let's meet. Would you be surprised to learn nothing came of it at all?
Well,
At all? I mean, what did I risk? A couple of smoothies, okay? But it should have just ended there. If someone goes off on you like that, when you're just trying to confirm a plan you made, that's it. I wasn't like saying, how's your day going? Oh, what beautiful weather we're having. Did you see that concert last night? I'm not
yeah,
doing
but
any of that.
see, I would have appreciated that.
You would appreciate it.
I would have liked the, "Hey, how's your day going?" And what,
Yeah.
like, "Whoa, we're about to have a big snowstorm." It would have signaled interest.
Well, I
So,
was interested until I got bombed for just like I said, just trying to confirm something.
but, here, I think that the, result of this is just to understand that you're not for everybody.
Exactly.
He was not for that lady, he was for me.
Yes.
You are not for everybody. There is one or two or three people out there for whom you are perfect. It's, you need to find them. And if you have to burn every piece of hay in the haystack to find them, well, then, get the matches out.
I will
What
say
are you waiting for? You're not getting any younger.
I will tell you this, and this we haven't even gotten to the part of meeting in person yet, but
As it's going to be I think this is going to be a 4-part.
3-part, 18-part. Here's the thing I want to say about this. The old saw is that first impressions are right, are valid. I don't actually believe that's true, but I do believe in a corollary to that, which I would like to share at this moment. You ready?
Yeah.
When someone is in their initial interactions with you. Now, weirdly, I learned this as a showrunner in television, okay? When I was suddenly put in the position of having to interview people for jobs, they would come in, and what I came to realize through the job interview process, guys, was that when someone comes in for an interview and they really want the job, they are showing you their A game, their seduction game. Everything they know about themselves to be attractive, they are pushing to the fore, and everything they know that people don't like, they're trying to mask and hide. So if you don't like that initial interaction, if you get a whiff of, victim complex or passive aggressive or, hair trigger, yeah, or overtly aggressive or hair trigger temper or whatever, if you don't like that, don't bother. We don't have the time. Okay. That was their A+ game. And if you get a whiff of any of those things, they are going to burst into full poison flower once you're invested. Would you agree with that?
Yes. Ab Absolutely. Um, I mean, I was also going to add that in my case, I sort of whittled it down eventually to, um, for me to present myself fully was the best to do in this job interview style. That is, uh, present myself with my flaws as well as my accomplishments. So this is, remember when, like, one of our very early talks was me telling him everything bad about me.
Oh
So
my God. This
let
was
like
unbelievable.
let me tell you, it's like, yes, he of course is looking at me and thinks you're beautiful, you're accomplished, you're smart, you're funny,
Yes, all true.
all of these things. And I said, okay, well, hang on. Let me give you the full story. I am also.
Now, let me ask you this. I don't remember this part. Did you do that before I said the bad stuff about myself?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I presented you with this quite early on because I thought, if uh, I really liked you and I didn't want you to go running a year down the line, as what had happened to me before,
Understood.
when you fully grasp the full idea of me and went, "Ah, you're too much. I don't want you."
Okay. Can I talk about what some of those things were?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So you came, this is very interesting, right? You came at me and said, here's the things that people have said about me in relationships.
Well,
What?
yes, but I mean, it was like,
Who I am,
this is who I am, and I know
as painted
this.
by others.
I know this because this is what others have told me.
Let me just pick one of the things that you told me. You said, they say I'm needy. Now, this pulled me up short, to be honest. And I said to you, I said, what is needy but the condition of having needs? That's it. We're all needy, okay? Needy is a term men apply to women when they are unable to meet those needs.
And you said to me, have you ever considered that your neediness might arise from your needs not being met? And
I
like
know
literally, I
that,
was
that
like,
look. Yeah.
"Wait, what?" And it was sort of life changing because believe me or not, at 58, I hadn't figured that out. I needed Jeff to actually say this to me, and it was like it completely shifted my worldview. I went, "Oh, wow. Oh
And
my
then
god."
proceeded to add on all of these strategies and tactics that you would use when you weren't getting what you want. You
That's right.
know, a passive aggressive, icy,
I can try to make you
try to make you
jealous, to
jealous,
get
be a
your
little
attention.
provocative, right? I will tell you this, and I am nothing but honest on this podcast. that portrait of herself that she painted, that woman has never shown up. She's never shown up. Now, I, I'd like to think it's because I'm a good partner and I've never given her cause to sort of bring those things out of the back of the cabinet. I'd like to think that. But I also could say maybe this was a function of the you that existed in prior relationships.
Both are true.
Both
As usual in life, it always ends up being a confluence of events, and both are true. I now have a partner with whom I've never had to battle to get your attention or to feel like you loved me. And also, I know better.
right.
I have learned to do better and be better.
And this goes to something that I believe I mentioned in the first episode, and why this has to be a volume business is that in many cases, we lack the self knowledge. We don't know. It's the, oh my God, okay. The Heisenberg uncertainty principle says that by observing a system, you change it. Okay. The uncertainty principle in relationship means that you can be a different kind of person inside different relationships.
Correct.
You're different with different people. This is why we have to put ourselves out there and date. Okay. And be prepared to exhibit your true and unvarnished self to that person and see if they accept it or not. And if they don't, you move on.
And the
You-
person that you should be interested in a second date with is the person with whom you feel like you are your best.
Exactly.
Never mind about them. But if you feel on the first date that you are at your smartest self, your most attractive self in this date, and it doesn't matter how you feel about him or her at this point, give it a second date for sure.
Yes. The goal is, it's not just about, do I like her? But it's like, do I like the version of me?
Do I like me with this person?
Because you are, to circle back to another theme from a previous episode, if you do it right, you're in the process of forging an us, okay? Which is the dynamic, the zhuzh,
The
right?
theme.
The team, okay? And you need to like both halves of the team in order to like the team you're forging. And if you find that you have to put on a show or that you have to mask parts of yourself, that you're doing a seduction game instead of just being the, warts and all person that you are, take a hard look at that. Take a hard look at that strategy, for one thing, but also ask yourself why he is making you feel that way. Why is he making you feel insecure to the point where you feel like you have to dazzle?
All right. Well,
Oh,
I
man.
think, yeah, it was like,
We're at the end of our hour, and we haven't met yet.
well, so once again, dating part 3 will be out next week.
Yes, are we going to just keep doing this till we exhaust it?
Yeah, I think we should.